Hi everybody, Big Guy here. Welcome to Mike's Garage. Listen, I wanted to start out the podcast here with a little introduction of myself. I was drafted in 1969 in January. The drafting process was, crazy. You go to 401 North Broad for your physical in Philadelphia. Then I went back to get inducted. We went to a place in Media, Pennsylvania called the Townhouse. It was a restaurant. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning. My dad went with me. There was a lot of other dads there. Had to be 70, 80 guys. And their dads, some had their moms with them. There was a lot of retired veterans there from the VA and the Salvation Army. They gave us a shaving kit and some other toiletry items to take with us. Weren't really allowed to take anything but the clothes you had on. So we sat there and they had coffee and donuts for us, and we waited for everything to be ready outside. And there was a couple MPs there, and it was very interesting. There was a lot of police that I remember. They came and they said, "Okay, guys, it's time to leave. Say your goodbyes. Shake your dad's hand. Give him a quick hug. They line you up." And the guy says, "Okay, there's school buses outside. We're going to go outside. We're going to go get right into the school buses. We don't want you to look around. We just want you to keep your head down and get right on the school bus." And that's it. Everybody understand? We all said, "Yeah." So one guy goes out. Band starts playing. The high school band is out there and they're playing da 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 da, some kind of a really loud, lot of trumpets, a lot of drums. So we go outside, and at the end of the streets they have barricades, and the police are there, and there's protesters at the end of the streets. Out in front of the restaurant there's 2 or 3 school buses. Across the street in the parking lot for the restaurant is the high school band. The band is playing as loud as they can. The protesters are waving signs. A couple of them got through the police and they came up and they're banging on the windows of the bus. "Get off the bus, you don't have to go. Get off the bus, you don't have to go." And the MPs are on the bus and they're walking up and down. They're saying, "Keep your head down, don't look out the window. Keep your head down, don't look out the window." And he's shouting at the driver, "Let's get out of here, let's get out of here." So they start up the bus, they start blowing the horn. The police open the barricades. They're pushing the protesters back. They're trying to walk in front of the bus. The bus is creeping along as the police are dragging the people from away from the front of the bus. It was crazy. So we get out of there and we head down to 401 North Broad. I said it on another video about the induction and the problems they had there with guys saying, "F no, I'm not going." And the MPs drug them out of the room right away. So from 401 North Broad, we had to, after we were inducted, we had to walk to 30th Street Station. It was a train station. And we got on the train. It was a sleeper train. And they assigned us bunks. They fed us a meal. We had breakfast early in the morning on the train. I think we got into Fort Bragg, North Carolina, about 5 o'clock in the morning on the train. We had a layover of about 3 hours in Baltimore. Nobody was allowed off the train. They had police outside the train. They had MPs on the train to make sure nobody could get on to cause trouble, or none of us could get off. So we get down to Fort Bragg. First time we met the drill sergeant. Now, you know what drill sergeants are like. Those of you who have been in there, they are tough guys, and they call you every name in the book, just trying to break you down. But I'll tell another story about them later on. So they take us over to the barber shop. First thing we do is go over to the barber shop. We get all our hair cut off. They cut you pretty close. Then we go over to the uniform place. They give you boots. They give you a uniform. They give you a hat. They give you all the other stuff. You have to get changed. You're in a room with everybody around you. You have to get changed. So leave your clothes there. They give you a cardboard box. You put your civilian clothes in the box. You're not going to need them. Put an address on them and send them home. So I did. Matter of fact, I sent them to my brother, who still lived at home, because I was like 18, 19. So now you got a duffel bag full of stuff, Army uniforms. They gave you dress uniforms too. They were in the bag, folded up. Off we go to the barracks. They show you where you're going to be sleeping in the barracks. We ran to the barracks with the bag on your back. Had to be a 30-pound bag of clothes. A couple pairs of boots, a pair of dress shoes. So we ran from the barber shop and the uniform area over to the barracks. They assigned us what floor we were on. Didn't matter if we had the top bunk or bottom bunk. Find a buddy, and that's what you did. So I got as far away from the door as I could. I was all the way down the end. You come up the stairs, you had to walk all the way down the end of the floor to get to my bunk. I was on the top bunk. And that's the way we started. So you go through 6 weeks of hell there. And the drill sergeants, you don't appreciate them until you're done with the training, because they get you in shape. They teach you how to not really survive, but how to take care of yourself, because you grow up really quick while you're there. So I did that, and I went from there. They had the graduation ceremony. A lot of parents came. My parents didn't come, but a lot of parents came. They gave you your MOS, military occupational skill. I was a car mechanic, had hot rods, ran at drag races when I was 16, 17 years old. They made me a wheeled vehicle mechanic, grease monkey. So I was sent to Fort Benning from there. So I went home for a week, I think it was. Then I went to Fort Benning, spent about 11 months there in the 818th Engineers. We shuffled the 101st Airborne around. They would drop out of the sky 2 o'clock in the morning into the darkness. We would go pick them up in the cargo trucks, 2.5-ton diesel trucks, pick them up, take them back. We did some minor construction, some road building and stuff like that. Mostly our job was to just take care of the vehicles so they would run and make it back to the base at the end of the day. That was our primary goal, was to keep everything running smooth. Anything that broke down, anything started making noise during the day, they would just bring it back at the end of the day. It was up to us to have it fixed by the next morning. Sometimes we had to pull late shift to get it fixed. Sometimes there was another truck they could use. Wasn't a problem. Was in Fort Benning for about 11 months doing that kind of stuff. Had some good times there. You know, when you get into a military situation like this, you have a tendency just to remember the good times. And we did have a few of those. We went to the University of Alabama. We saw the Rolling Stones. I tell you what, there was 2 shows. We went to the early show because the tickets were $5. The early show didn't take place because there were only about 150 people there. But about 10 o'clock, the place started to fill up because the second show was about to start. So between the people that bought tickets for the first show and the people that bought tickets for the second show, the place was pretty much full. So we got a nice show there. You know, I mean, it's a shame one of the drummer just died today of the Rolling Stones, but we got to see all those guys live. They were, you know, like we were 20 years old at the time, 1969. There was a female base down there. I forget what it was, the Navy or the Army. We used to go there for the dances and things. We went to New Orleans, and on the weekends, we did not waste any time. There was Mike from Texas, Jack from Anaheim, and Wally from Southern California. The 4 of us hung out pretty much a lot. Missed those guys. Haven't been in touch with them in 50 years. So anyway, around December 69, I get orders to go to Vietnam. I have a 30-day leave coming. I take the 30 days. Had to report to Oakland Air Base beginning first or second week of January. So I get to the air base. Very, very sad time. A lot of guys there didn't want to be there. A lot of young men crying. They didn't want to go, but we were drafted. So stick us on a plane, 300 people on a plane, 3 or 4 across, 1 aisle down the middle. You weren't allowed to get up without permission. There was a couple stewardesses on there. You could get a drink. They passed out a cheese sandwich or something, I forget. We landed in Hawaii because we were having some kind of an engine problem. We were there for about 3 hours. We were not allowed off the airplane. They parked far away from the terminal. They got the airplane fixed. We went to, I think it was Okinawa. Now in Okinawa, they came in, they sprayed everything on the airplane for bugs. You weren't allowed to go in unless the plane was filled with insecticide. So we went through that, and they explained that they were going to fly over high, and then they were going to spiral down into the airport and land. And when they landed, we were to get off the airplane as quickly as possible, grab our duffel bag. Now, what they did is when you walked out to the plane to get on the plane, you handed them your duffel bag, and you had to go sit all the way in the back. So as you got off of the plane, the first guys off of the plane, their duffel bag would be the first one coming out of the cargo thing. So anyway, there's guys underneath throwing the bags out from underneath of the airplane, and we're running down the stairs because there wasn't any ramp like there is today. There's just stairs. Run down, you find your bag, and you run into the bunker, kind of a terminal at the airport, and there's somebody there waiting for you. They call your name alphabetically, and there's guys there waiting for you to pick you up to take you back. So we go over there, and they pick us up, take me back. I went to Fort Benning, Long Bend. The Long Bend Fort was in the 46th Engineers Headquarters Company. So Headquarters Company didn't have too much heavy equipment. They had mostly Jeeps, pickup trucks, dump trucks, 2.5 ton, deuce and a half transportation supply trucks. That's what we took care of. Served by 11 months there. I was supposed to get out in January of 71, and they let us out in December of 70. The point of the whole story is when we were getting out, we started to turn over the equipment to the South Vietnamese Army. And the South Vietnamese Army was not ready. It pretty much reminds me of Afghanistan today, and that's the whole point here, is the guys came, the military guys came. Most of them could speak some English. There was a translator there. And we would turn over all the logbooks and all the keys to the Jeeps and to the pickup trucks, and they would go over everything like they were very concerned about the maintenance of it. Was this properly taken care of? Yeah. It was this is a good truck. We took care of our equipment because you didn't want anybody to get let down out in the middle of nowhere, okay? And they couldn't make it back to the base because you did not want to get stuck off base at night. So then they came in with some other flatbeds. Now the buildings were a frame building, wood frame building, and they had corrugated metal on the sides and on the roof, and they had really cheap windows in them. Some of the windows worked, some didn't. They had doors on them. Some of the doors locked, some of them didn't. But anyway, they meticulously took the building apart, piece by piece, sheet by sheet, didn't bend anything, took it all apart, stacked it up real nice and neat. They kept all the nails and screws that took the building apart. They kept them. Nothing was left behind. They took it all. I swear to God, 2 days later, we're off base, and we see our trucks. They're painted a different color. They have a family in them. The guy now has his own pickup truck. He stole it, or they took it, and it was not for military use. They were using it for personal use. So we were in trouble right from the beginning. And there was a whole warehouse full of spare parts. Now, I mentioned in the other video that the vehicles, most of the vehicles we have were Korean War vintage vehicles. They were flathead 6 cylinders, flathead 4 cylinders. Those of you who aren't motorheads, you know they're not really a powerful engine, but they're reliable. I mean, top speed on most of the pickup trucks was 30, 35 miles an hour because they were geared for going through the mud and going up hills that were a pretty steep incline. So they weren't fast vehicles. You could tell they were military vehicles. Some of them tried to paint over the numbers where you had 46 engineers and all the designations on the bumpers. Some of them were painted over nice. Some of them were just slop paint on with a brush. And that's how they painted them, with a brush. But, you know, our vehicles were taken by the South Vietnamese Army. They were not part of the Army's equipment. They were just made part of the civilian population. Same thing with the spare parts. You could buy spare parts on the street. Some guy had a storefront full of all of our parts, and if you had commandeered one of the military vehicles, you could get parts from him to keep it running. So anyway, that was the sad part of it. When we left, I went home a couple of months after I got out of there. Well, let me back up a little bit. We went to the airport to leave the country. So we're still in Vietnam. We go to the airport. Now, the planes handle about 300 guys at a time. And there's got to be 1,000 guys at this depot to exit the country. Planes were coming in, 300 guys would get off. They would, and we would get right on the plane. They didn't fuel the plane. They didn't do any maintenance to the plane, nothing, because it went right to Okinawa or right to the next designation. Now, what happened to us is they called out 300 names. We had to go over to the other side. So there's 300 of us standing there with our duffel bags. And the captain comes out and he says, okay, he says, listen, he says, the Bob Hope show is going to start in about an hour. Any of you who want to stay for the Bob Hope show, step aside, we'll call another name, and we promise we'll try to get you on the next airplane. Nobody left. Every guys were screaming, F Bob Hope, we'll watch it on TV. It was just crazy. So we get on the airplane, pack everybody on there. Now, it's a completely different mood when you came into the country. You were just happy to get out of there, okay? So the plane takes off. Everybody was cheering. Everybody was shouting. A couple guys were crying. They were so happy to get the hell out of there. And we went to Japan. Same thing. Not allowed off the airplane. Not allowed to take anybody on the airplane. Not allowed to bring anything on. Nobody's allowed to come on the airplane. We stopped there. That's what it did, the maintenance check. We were on the airplane for a couple hours. Hot in there. It was really hot. And everybody's sweaty. Everybody's right on top of each other because it was packed. And they refueled the airplane, and we flew from Japan to the Oakland Air Force Base. Now, we get into the Oakland Air Force Base. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning, okay? So we get off the Air Force Base. They throw us in a barracks. There's just mattresses. There's no sheets. There's no blankets. There's no pillows. You guys wait here until you get your physicals and your discharge papers tomorrow. We'll come and get you. So everybody picked a bunk, tied your luggage up, your duffel bag, and went to sleep. Slept the best you could. They come by about 7 o'clock in the morning, banging on the bunks, everybody up for breakfast, leave your stuff here. Take us down to the mess hall. I have to admit, we had steak and eggs for breakfast. It was really nice. Everybody was really personable. We had a nice breakfast, had a nice time, a lot of smiling going on, happy to be back. So then we go back to get our duffel bags, and we have to march down to a gymnasium. Now, I don't know whether it was a military gymnasium or what it was, but there was just bleachers on one side, and it's an open basketball court, and there was just offices on the other side. So we're hanging around there for hours and hours. And finally, the captain shows up about 11 o'clock in the morning. He's a doctor. He says, okay, everybody down here, give me a formation. So everybody starts wandering down, and he's screaming. He starts screaming, attention, everybody march down here right away, go. So everybody had to run down, get in a formation, dress it up, nice straight lines, nice straight aisles and everything. This guy's messing with us. So we all get in straight lines. We all do everything, right dress. And he says, okay, he's walking up and down in front of the formation. Okay, here's the physical we're going to have today. Anybody have a problem that they think they need to talk to me about, step off to the side over there. And if you think you have some kind of a disability or some kind of an infection or something that the military has to be responsible for, step off to the side. 5 or 6 guys did. They stepped off to the side and went off to the side. So he says, okay, everybody else, eyes front, put your arms straight out in front of you, palms down. So that's what you did, palms down. Okay, turn your left hand over so it's palm up. Turn your right hand over so it's palm up. put your arms down at your side, line up over here, and I'll sign your discharge papers. You just all passed the exit physical. Swear to God, that was the physical. Didn't check your tonsils, didn't check your eyesight, didn't check anything. No, turn your head and cough. They just wanted to get you out of there, which at the time was fine with me, just fine with me. So we go down, get in line, signs the papers. You go over to payroll, you hand in your name. Now I was due 30 days back pay because I didn't get a leave or anything while I was there. I did go to Thailand, Bangkok for a week, but they owed me 30 days pay, plus they gave me transportation. Now, at this point, I'm discharged, man. I'm not in the Army anymore. But all I got on is my dress uniform. They said if you didn't want your uniform, if you didn't want your jungle fatigues, you could leave them over there. The only thing I took out of there was the jungle boots in the duffel bag. Okay, I had some toiletries and some other trinkets and I think it was a carton of cigarettes. That's what I took out of there. Everything else, I just threw it in a pile with everybody else. We didn't take any jungle fatigues out of there at all. So now what do? We're discharged. I got a pocket full of money. There was a couple things there. There was a bus. Here's where the bus station is. Here's where the train station is. Here's where the airport is. So a couple guys, we shared a cab. We went to the mall. Went to the mall. We got some civilian clothes. We got changed. Okay, I did keep the dress uniform. I still have it upstairs. So we get changed, go to the airport. Try to get a flight out to go back to Philly. No flights available. The only flight I could get out of there, because I wanted to get out of Oakland, I was afraid they were going to say, hey, excuse me, we made a mistake. You're not really discharged, so I wanted to get out. I got a flight to Chicago. So I had to wait around about an hour. I got a standby ticket. It was the cheapest ticket. And they call my name for standby, and I'm walking out to the airplane. Now, that's true. There's no ramps. There's no hallway that you walk down to get on the airplane. You had to walk across the runway and climb up the steps to get in the airplane. So I'm halfway to the airplane and hear somebody running behind me. And it's the guy at the gate that takes the tickets. And he stops me. He says, I'm sorry, you've been bumped off of the flight. I said, what? He says, yeah, you've been bumped off of the flight. I have a woman here who has a first class ticket, and she walked by me. Quick, got on the airplane. That was the last seat. They shut the door. I had to turn around and go back into the terminal. 2 or 3 hours later, I got another flight. It was another airport near Chicago. So I got on that flight. I finally got out of there on standby. And there was hundreds of guys in the airport on standby trying to fly all over the country. So I get into Chicago, was able to get another flight to Philly that afternoon. And I hadn't called my parents at all. So we get into Philly, stopped and I got some breakfast, got a beer at some place. I wasn't allowed to take the beer out of the bar. And I found a payphone. I called home. I says, hey, come and get me. And nobody answered the phone at my house. I had to call my uncle. And I called my Uncle Lou, and I says, hey, you're the only guy that answered the phone. I'm here. I'm in the Philadelphia airport. Where's my dad? He says, I don't know, but I'll find him. If I can't find him, I'll come and get you myself. So about an hour later, my brothers and sisters come running in the airport looking for me because there was no paging system. There was no call me on the cell phone or send me a text. Okay, so I am in the area where you get picked up. So they did find me, and I got out, got in the car, and I'm gone. The other thing is that the point of the whole story was, so I get home, and a couple of weeks had gone by, and I'm sitting there watching the news with my dad about what the fiasco was of everybody trying to get out of Vietnam. The people jumping on the helicopters, leaving off the roof of the buildings. It was terrible. I can still see the vision of that today, of all those poor people, because they knew that if the North Vietnamese army and the Viet Cong came in, everybody that helped the Americans was going to be executed. They were not going to have any dissent whatsoever, and that's what happened. Unfortunately, they don't tell you everything that went on. I know guys that were there. I talked to them that were didn't leave for another 8 months after I did, and they said it was horrible because they couldn't find the people. They had to find the people to get them out of the country. The unfortunate part is the people that get out of the country were the crooks, crooked politicians, crooked police chiefs, people that took the money and got paid for defending their country, never did it. They cowards, they ran away. That's who they took out of Vietnam for the most part. Now, don't get me wrong, there were good people that got out of there, but a lot of times the politicians were just in it for the money. A lot of people left there millionaires, Vietnamese people that left there millionaires and left all the people behind. I mean, they didn't want to stay and fight for their country. They just wanted to leave. Very sad thing is happening in Afghanistan right now. Talked to a couple Marines that did tours there, and that was the fear all along. How long are you going to stay? You guys can never leave. They will come back and they will kill all of us. This free market system is not going to be allowed to exist. Sharia law is going to come in. Everybody's going to be put down again under the thumb of the governing Taliban, whatever you want to call them. So it's sad what's going on. I hope they get it straightened out. I hope they are trying their best to make this work for the people that helped the soldiers over there. And for all the soldiers that came home from there and you saw exactly what's going on, and, I salute you. Thank you for your service. That's great. I feel terrible about the people that lost their lives there. For what? For nothing. 20 years, and they're right back where they started from. I mean, I heard a saying early on that it came from the Taliban, that the Americans have the weapons and they have a superior army, but we have the time. So we just wait them out. We'll hide in the mountains. We'll cause some problems here and there. We'll send a poor kid off with a suicide bomb, something like that. But they waited us out. So now it's 20 years later. Probably another generation is coming up. The guys that originally were there were in their 30s. Now they're too old to fight. So now their young sons are 20 years old, and they're the ones taking up the fight. So it's sad to see the country digress like that. Vietnam went the same way. It's still under heavy communist rule. It's coming out of the dark ages a little bit, but it's sad. So I hope that is helpful. I do really like hearing from the guys about your experiences there. I'm sorry to ramble on. That's my story. I really did shorten it up a bit because I'm only on for 30 minutes. So I'm going to do a live streaming on Tuesdays, 9 to 9:30. Thank you guys for watching. Send me some comments. I'd like to try and help the guys with Agent Orange find the right place to go. There's a couple people in the comments that left something. Like I say, I've had 11 different spots of skin cancer, and they say it's not related to Agent Orange. But, skin cancer is from being overexposed to the sun. They call it a basal cell carcinoma, okay? But I have those between my hip and my knee. And that's never been in the sun, trust me, okay? There was no skinny dipping or nude sunbathing that went on. So how do you get cancer from the sun if the sun has never been on your hip, okay? So I don't know what the answer is. I'm not trying to be a professional of anything here. I'm just a guy trying to talk about what's going on. And a lot of us haven't talked about what went on. We haven't talked about what we experienced. And sometimes you need to get that out. And maybe that's what I'm doing. I had some good times there. The rest of it was bad times, fearful, always afraid. You couldn't trust anybody. All those feelings were there too. You're always looking over your shoulder, try to see what's going on. Well, I'm sorry for going on and on. I'm trying to keep this to 30 minutes. So my producer's giving me the high sign over there. Okay. And we'll wind this up, and we'll see you next Tuesday, 9 to 9:30. I want some comments. I want some followers. I want some subscribers. I want to bring up the comments that you give me, and we can talk about that. Give a shout out to some of you. Thank you guys for your service, all of you. the young and the old. Be safe out there. Take care.